que ir a la escuela.
All right, thank you for joining us here as we discuss a number of issues and concerns and successes across the county as we continue to safely reopen and as we face up front the very real social concerns of our citizens. Mayor Demings will discuss these concerns along with Sheriff Mina, who is here as well. He will make a brief statement as well and be here for questions. Mayor Demings will also talk about CARES Act funding, PPE efforts, and the reopening plans of our theme parks and much more. Dr. Raul Pino is here from the Florida Department of Health in Orange County. He has his information on testing sites, our numbers, and how we are doing in our efforts in reducing risk. So we will start right now first with Mayor Demings. Mayor?
Thank you, Dr. Williamson, and thank you to all of you for being here today. As I begin, I want to just focus on the fact that today, June the 1st, is a day that has been deemed as a national day of mourning and lament in our country. I am joining the mayors and other faith leaders across the country to remember and pay respect to the more than 100,000 individuals who have died in our nation as a result of COVID-19. To put that into perspective, that is more than the 58,000 individuals who died as a result of the Vietnam War. So with that, my heart does go out to all of those families who have lost a loved one. And so what I'm going to ask us to do in honor of those families is to have just a moment of silence as we begin this media event. All right, thank you for joining me in that. I remain committed to providing our residents here in Orange County and visitors alike with the highest level of public safety and security. And although our community is facing multiple challenges, our sense of compassion, unity, and hope will help us navigate these uncertain times that we find ourselves in. I want to remind everyone that June the 1st is also the start of the 2020 hurricane season. We are expecting between 13 and 19 named storms during this season that will run until November. When you think about that number of storms, it's more than the number from last year, and we had a very active last year. So in the midst of a pandemic, we have a hurricane season that we are now within as well. Today begins the sales tax holiday, which will go through Thursday as well. So if you want to stock up on those hurricane supplies, remember that you can save a little bit of money because of the sales tax forgiveness. It is with that backdrop that I want to outline my goals for this week. Number one goal remains to prevent the spread of the coronavirus in our community. Number two, to continue to offer free testing and personal protective equipment to residents and small businesses. And number 3, to help residents and businesses fully understand the qualifications and paperwork that will be necessary to access the CARES funding that will be provided by Orange County within this community. I want to take a moment to also discuss the curfew that was put in effect that began last evening at 10 p.m. and goes to 5 a.m. nightly. I want to remind everyone that we have continued to remain under a state of emergency since mid-March. As I just stated, my top goal is to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. And what I saw happen this weekend as numerous demonstrations occurred in our community, large crowds would gather. And there were many individuals who were not wearing facial masks. They were in immediate proximity to one another, which created the environment, if one of them had the virus, for that virus to spread very rapidly. And that is in conflict with what we have been trying to do in this community now for several months. And here we are, we have relatively low numbers in this community. And unfortunately, I do understand the passion of many people who have been impacted by the emotional aspect associated with the death of George Floyd and what that signifies throughout America. But by the same token, we cannot relax our efforts to stop the virus in its tracks here within this community. And so my focus as Orange County mayor and this role of a state of emergency, I therefore become the emergency manager for the entire county. And sometimes I think the role of government is to protect its citizenry from itself. And so that's what we're going to continue to do as we make decisions moving forward. We all lived through the shutdown of many of our businesses, and I really don't want to have to relive shutting down businesses again. So we had to make some decisions. I consulted with Sheriff Mina and the other law enforcement executives, and the decision to, again, institute the curfew really had nothing to do with trying to stifle individuals from being able to express their First Amendment rights. That really wasn't our goal. My goal, again, is to stop the spread of the virus. And I take that role and responsibility very seriously in this community. And I believe that the people have entrusted me to take that role and responsibility very seriously. And so it may inconvenience some, but we'll get through it. And as I talk about Orange County and where we are, we have over 2,000 confirmed positive cases now. In fact, 2,031 cases and 41 deaths here within Orange County alone. And I want us to make certain that we never forget that this is a deadly virus. And so as we move forward, we want to make sure that we also are helping our citizens where we can help them. And so you now know that we have tested over 72,000 individuals in the county with a positivity rate remaining at 2.8%. So it remains low. And when we sometimes don't keep that in front of us, we forget about it, we can inadvertently create the situation where those numbers go up significantly, and I don't want that to happen. Statewide, the coronavirus positivity rate remains at 5.5%. Over 1 million residents and visitors have been tested in Florida since the coronavirus testing started 91 days ago. At the convention center alone, we have tested nearly 22,000 individuals. Our health services is offering free COVID testing for Orange County residents 18 years of age and older at Apopka High School through Thursday. So today through Thursday, you can go to Apopka High School as well if you live in the area of the county. You can also go to ocfl.net/coronavirus to make an appointment. Those getting tested will get free face masks and hand sanitizers. This week, Orange County small businesses have another opportunity to pick up free reusable cloth face masks at Barnett Park or Downey Park on Wednesday or Thursday of this week. That's Wednesday or Thursday of this week. Businesses have they have to register at ocfl.net/PPE in order to make an appointment so we do that primarily so we know how much stock we need to have available. So we only ask that the businesses have fewer than 40 employees. We want to make certain that we're helping the smallest of our businesses here in this community. Last Friday, we were proud to serve 367 different faith-based organizations by providing free personal protective equipment. A total of 328,500 face masks were distributed to help these congregations from Orange County open up again safely if they had not been having services. We assisted them because we know that they are following the CDC guidelines as they endeavor to continue having religious worships. As we emerge from the devastating economic impacts and effects, Orange County government is allocating approximately $142 million in Federal CARES Act funding towards small businesses and providing rental or mortgage assistance and social service programs here within this community. We have now launched a detailed information portal on our website for you to be able to gain information about the various small business grants as well as the individual and family assistance grant program. That area of our website went live today around midday. Information about the programs plus the documents you will need to apply can be found on ocfl.net/orangecares. The site includes frequently asked questions, step-by-step processes, and videos. The applications will open up 1 week from today. So we are helping to prepare our businesses for the actual application being submitted 1 week from today. There are documents and other things that you will need, so if you go to the site, you will understand exactly what you will need in order for the applications to be submitted. Of course, in order to receive the $10,000, businesses will have to qualify. This is a derivative of the federal funds that we have received through the CARES Act, which means that it does have certain stipulations that we have to follow. It's not free money in the sense that there are no strings attached to it. There are some specific guidelines that we have to meet as we provide those funds to small businesses. Also, Orange County's Individual and Family Assistance Program will provide a one-time payment of $1,000 per qualified household for residents affected by COVID-19. We envision funds from this program will assist qualified residents to bridge financial gaps for overdue rent, mortgage, medical payments, or an eligible utility expense. Please remember that, again, that this is federal money and we have to follow certain guidelines in order to document the expenditure of those funds. Today, hundreds of workers for Universal Orlando return to work. That's some good news for our community. Universal Orlando will officially open its doors to the public this coming Friday, June the 5th. So they are going through the dress rehearsal, essentially by beginning with their employees there at Universal Studios. Just as a reminder, the governor's office approved Disney's plan to open on July the 11th, and SeaWorld will be reopening on June the 10th. In addition, the 12 smaller attractions who submitted letters were approved by the governor's office. We received all of the final approvals this past Friday, I believe it was. All of these documents and letters can be found at ocfl.net /economic recovery under the resources tab. the remaining bit of good news, Orange County will be reopening its parks and online camping reservations for Kelly, Magnolia, Moss, and Trimble parks will open on Friday, June the 5th. It will be limited to family campsites for 8 people or fewer. And to find information about how you can register, secure a placement for those sites, you can go to ocfl.net/parks for information. And so with that, at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Pino is up next to come forward, and then he'll introduce Sheriff Mina.
Thank you, sir.
As the mayor mentioned, we have 2,031 cases. Our positivity rate continues to be at 2.8 since we saw you last. Our recovery rate is about 87%, and we have about 375 individuals who are on the current infectious period for the disease in our county. I also would like to share with you a new data that we have been able to calculate. It is a rate per 100,000. So how many people per 100,000 have the virus in our county? Just to give you a perspective, the highest point was 21.1 per 100,000. We went to the lowest point on week 18, which was 5.8. The highest that we have been since is 10.5, and where we are right now is 9.4. So although we have seen an increase in the number of cases, and that was expected, we are optimistic in the sense that the increase has been slow and not very dramatic, and that has a relevance for our healthcare system and how hospitals are able to respond to the pandemic, which is a critical, important aspect of all these. Just to give you another idea, we had continuous negative growth up to week 18. On week 19, we have an increase, and we saw a negative growth in week 21. Last week, which is week 22, we only saw an increase of about 7% in the number of cases as relates to the prior week. With hospitalizations, we didn't have any hospitalization on the 27th, the 28th, the 29th, or the 30th of May. And on the 31st, we have one new hospitalization. So that is some of the data that we are watching and monitoring. And the data continues to trend in the right direction. And although, again, we have seen an increase in the number of cases, and that was expected, the increase has not been accelerated. So that is optimistic from the data point of view. With that, I will give the microphone to Sheriff Mina.
So good afternoon. I also wanted to reiterate the fact that we are still under a state of emergency, and now again we have a curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 until further notice, and that we will enforce the curfew to keep our community safe. We did have a number of incidents in unincorporated Orange County, probably people taking advantage of the activity in the downtown area related to the protests down there. So again, we will enforce the curfew. We want people to stay safe, and if they don't have a reason to be out after 10 p.m., if they're not going to work, if they're not coming to and from work, they need to be home and not out and about in the streets. Over the past 2 days, we'd have 3 deputies struck by rocks as it relates to the protests that were in the downtown area. And again, a number of businesses were broken into in unincorporated Orange County last night, as well as in the city of Orlando. And again, we understand that people want to protest, to demonstrate, and we've had a long history of that in our community and letting people do that. So we are going to facilitate that when we have to by blocking roadways and such. But we want people to do that in a peaceful manner, and then when it hits 10 o'clock, that's time to start heading home, and we'll enforce the curfew after that. But, we understand people are upset. We understand people that want to get out their frustrations and even use this to open the dialogue with law enforcement. We are definitely open to that, but we have to do so in a peaceful and a safe way, and definitely have to be off the streets by 10 o'clock. That's all I had to say. I'll turn it back over to Mayor Dennis.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Are there any questions this afternoon?
Mayor, I hear you're concerned about people gathering.
Hang on one second. Hang on.
Sorry, it's been a while. I haven't been here in a long time, sorry. Mayor, it's Nadine with News 6. I hear your concern when it comes to people gathering. I would imagine that some people feel like their passion to have their voices heard in this matter is more important because they are so passionate about this. What would you say to the demonstrators, just your response to their outcry in our city or in our county?
Well, they have plenty of time other than after the curfew in order to express their concerns. And in fact, in the last few days, they have certainly had the opportunity to do that. I think there have been numerous gatherings, and there will continue to be gatherings, but we still have a concern for the overall well-being of this community, and that can't trump the safety and well-being of the entire community. So I think that there's ample time for them to be able to express their First Amendment rights.
Lauren Seabrook, Channel 9. Question for Dr. Pino along those same lines. Just like to hear your concerns on seeing these large groups of people gathering, given that we're in a pandemic. How quickly can it spread? What could they be doing to continue their efforts, but do it in a safe way as far as COVID-19?
So in the prior protest that we have a few weeks ago with regard to Open America, not that we are comparing, but the issues continue to be the same. Large gathering of people who are not observing social distancing, are using masks, or ability to sanitize, hand wash, and do other things will increase the number of cases if the spread were to occur. The protesters could continue to protest. We could wear masks. We could observe some social distancing elements. And also part of my concern is the shouting and the agitated state of mind that conducive to hyperventilation, and also if someone were to be positive, that is an increased risk.
And question for Sheriff Mina. The photo of you and Chief Rolone has really taken off on social media. Could you tell us a little bit about that moment, what it was like for you and why you did what you did?
Right, so that was just something spontaneous. I was standing there with Chief Rolone in front of OPD headquarters, and one of his commanders had mentioned that he had talked to one of the organizers, and he seemed to be open to dialogue. So I was like, let's go talk to him. And so what we told Mr. Justin Tucker is that we wanted to hear his concerns, and we were open to listening to him. And he told me about a police shooting here. One of his friends, and we said we understand. We've had friends killed in the line of duty, so we understand what your pain is, and we know the community's hurting. And they asked us to take a knee, and it was very spontaneous. And glad we were there to share in the moment, to see that we're all in this together, and we should work together to solve our issues.
Mayor Demings, Emily Braun with News 13. The governor has yet to say whether he will extend the state's eviction moratorium, as thousands say they're still waiting for unemployment benefits. So have you given any consideration of local measures to help and the long-term financial impact on families because of everything that's happening?
Well, I mentioned to you about our crisis assistance program, and it's designed to help those families and individuals. And we will begin that process of taking applications a week from today, while we already have been in the process of going back to, I guess it was maybe early April, we began the process of providing rental assistance to low-income individuals here in this community. And so we have tried to fill the gap between when the available state or federal funds were coming available, and we use our local funds. At this point, we're transitioning to the use of the CARES Act funding.
Hi again.
Yes.
So can you tell me, I know that the City of Orlando has a Citizens Review Board, and the mayor kind of went through all the things they're doing to keep community trust open with the police department. Anything that the county is doing to ease the mind of these protesters as they're asking for change? Do you have something like a Citizens Review Board or anything like that?
A few years ago, the courts ruled that as it relates to a sheriff in the unincorporated area, we have a sheriff who is the chief law enforcement officer, cannot mandate that a sheriff have a citizen review board. But notwithstanding that, I know that the sheriff has a citizens advisory group. But one of the things more specifically that we're doing about the here and now is, and you'll hear more about it later this week, we hope to have organize a candid chat session through our MLK initiative that we kicked off just a month and a half or so ago, which is a group of citizens here within our community who have committed themselves to embracing the philosophies of nonviolence to accomplish justice and civil rights justice, etc. And so we will get you more information about a planned candid chat in a town hall type of a format. So we're organizing the plans for that, and we hope to get that in place to do it as soon as this Friday. So stand by for more information on that. Our goal is to create a vehicle by which individuals can constructively have a conversation about where we go in the short term, and perhaps set a framework for where we can go long term to improve police community relations. And I can tell you, as nearly a 40-year law enforcement officer in this community, and having worked in multiple different local law enforcement agencies now, that I know the cultures of these agencies. They have really committed themselves for decades now to having good public relations, and so I applaud the sheriff in his efforts now to really continue that. And so I think we're pretty fortunate in our community that you will see our law enforcement agencies engaged in activities that are purely to benefit the community, that may not specifically be law enforcement related, where they are of service to our community in a number of ways by volunteering with community-based organizations. They're coaches for Little League sports teams, etc. They are volunteer counselors. They volunteer within their places of worship, etc. And you will see an abundance of that if you look through their social media posts. You'll understand that this isn't something that's new for our law enforcement officers to lead with their hearts and not with their guns. So that's the kind of law enforcement community that we have. There's always room for improvement, and that's what we are trying to make certain that we have healthy conversations about where there are opportunities to improve.
I'll add on to that. We do have a Citizens Advisory Committee at the Orange County Sheriff's Office that we give them cases of high profile, any cases, internal investigations that they want to see are provided to them. I also run a lot of the policies that we are implementing at the Sheriff's Office before them to see if they can make, if they want any changes or additions. One of the things that I will be doing in the future is to once again do a whole overview to my Citizens Advisory Committee on the use of force, our statistics, and go over the policy once again, as we have done in the past, and get their input, and get their input related to even recent events. As the mayor said, we do a number of initiatives at the Orange County Sheriff's Office. I'm so proud to include engaging with our youth through the Police Athletic League, through our Civilian Police Academy, and a number of other formal community engagement projects, to include a lot of informal things. You see, one of the heartwarming stories from all of this, last night, a woman called our 911 center and said that her 11-year-old daughter was totally shaken up by this entire incident in Minneapolis, was real tentative about the police, and this mother, to her credit, she called our communication center and said, can you send a deputy there? So we sent 2 deputies there to talk to the little girl mother and assure them that we are there to help. Certainly we are not perfect, but we are here to listen to you, and really reassured that little girl. So there's hundreds of stories that come up like that. You'll never ever hear about interactions between law enforcement and our community, and we are certainly open to the dialogue. As a matter of fact, I have several different conversations with faith-based leaders and other community leaders around Orange County who want to, again, start that dialogue, and really it continues. We constantly talk about it. Thank you.
This next question comes from Melissa Thomas with Florida National News. This one's for you, Mayor Demings. What are the key differences between Orange County's rental assistance program and the individual and family assistance program that will be rolled out with the CARES Act funding?
The major difference is the requirements for qualification will be more relaxed. So it will be easier for us to provide funding to individuals than the prior program.
She followed up with, what are the end results of the rent assistance program and how many people have been helped?
In terms of the number of people that's been helped, I can't tell you that off the top of my head, but we're somewhere around $700,000 in assistance that's been provided to individual families since we started the program.
This next one comes from Ryan Lynch with Orlando Business Journal. For you, Mayor Demings, how could protests like these ones we've been seeing over the last couple of days affect how the county moves on to the next phase of reopening, if at all?
It could have an impact on the decisions at various levels, I think, of government. The governor will certainly take into consideration the reopening phases, and it's all based on the numbers. It's very difficult to fully reopen or go to the next phases if you have property damage and violence going on at the same time. So I think we're going to have to, I think logically, before the governor will likely authorize moving to phase 2, he'll want to see that our major metropolitan areas are at peace in order to move forward in a healthy, proactive, productive way. So it will have an impact, I think, on those decisions going forward. Okay. If there are no other questions, let me just say thank you to all of you for being here. Hopefully this has been instructive to you. I didn't see any of the traditional Spanish-speaking media that is here today, but I'll double check. Do we have any questions in Spanish for anyone, any of our media that's here? Okay, I don't see any. So we do have, I know, 2 of our commissioners here, Spanish-speaking commissioners, Commissioner Mayra Uribe and Commissioner Maribel Gomez-Cordero. Any of us available. If you wanted to do some one-on-ones, they certainly would be available as well. See? Thank you all for being here. All right. Have a good evening.